They say storms destroy everything in their path. What they don't tell you is sometimes they save you from something worse. I'm Daniel Carter, and until last weekend, I thought I had everything figured out. 18 years of marriage to Emily, a beautiful son named Matthew who just turned 15, and a life that looked perfect from the outside. Hell, it looked perfect from the inside too, or maybe I just wasn't looking close enough. Dad, you got the new lures? Matthew called from the garage, his voice cracking in that way that reminded me he was becoming a man faster than I was ready for. Already packed, I shouted back, checking my tackle box one more time. Our weekend fishing trips had become sacred over the years. Just us, the lake, and whatever was biting. Emily never came. Said she preferred her me time when we were gone. I never questioned it. Why would I? Standing in our kitchen now, watching Emily scroll through her phone with that distant look she'd been wearing lately, I should have seen the signs. The new gym membership she suddenly couldn't live without. The way she'd started wearing perfume to grocery shop. The late-night texting sessions she claimed were with her sister in Seattle. "You boys all set?" she asked without looking up. Her blonde hair was freshly highlighted. Another recent change. At 41, she looked better than she had in years. I'd been proud of her transformation, told myself it was just healthy midlife self-care. "Yeah, we're heading out in 20, I said, walking over to kiss her goodbye. She turned her cheek to me, still focused on her screen. "Weather looks perfect. Should be back Sunday afternoon." "Take your time," she said quickly, too quickly. "You two deserve a real break. Maybe even stay until Monday morning if the fish are biting." Matthew appeared in the doorway, all gangly limbs and excitement. "Mom, we're taking the cabin key, right?" "Of course, honey," she replied, finally looking up. For a moment, something flickered across her face. Guilt? Anticipation? I couldn't place it. "You boys have fun. Really bond, you know?" The family cabin was a 2-hour drive north, nestled on a private lake that had been in my family for 3 generations. As Matthew and I loaded our gear into my truck, I noticed Emily watching from the window. She waved, then disappeared back into the house before we'd even pulled out of the driveway. "Dad, did you see the weather update?" Matthew asked, fiddling with his phone as I navigated through our suburban neighborhood. "Clear skies all weekend," I replied. "Perfect conditions. Yeah, but there's something about a system moving in from the west. Says it might speed up," he mentioned. I glanced at the dashboard display. 72 degrees and sunny. Weather guys get paid whether they're right or wrong. "We'll be fine. The drive up was perfect." Matthew and I talked about school, his interest in engineering, the girl he'd been working up the courage to ask to homecoming. These conversations came easier on the road without the distractions of home. "You and Mom okay?" he asked suddenly about an hour into the drive. The question caught me off guard. "Of course, why?" He shrugged. "She just seems different lately. Distracted, I guess." "Your mom's going through some changes," I said, believing my own explanation. "It's normal at her age. Women need to rediscover themselves sometimes." "I guess," he said, but something in his tone suggested he wasn't convinced. We reached the cabin just after noon on Friday. The lake was glass smooth, perfect for bass fishing. As we unpacked, I found myself thinking about Emily's insistence that we take our time. She'd practically pushed us out the door. In 18 years of marriage, she'd never been so eager for us to leave. "Dad, check this out," Matthew called from the dock. "The barometer's dropping fast." I joined him, looking at the weather app on his phone. Sure enough, that western system had picked up speed. The forecast now showed severe thunderstorms hitting our area by Saturday afternoon instead of Monday. "We'll keep an eye on it," I said, though something cold settled in my stomach. It wasn't the storm that bothered me. It was the thought of going home early, surprising Emily. As Matthew baited his hook for our first cast, I pushed the feeling aside. Whatever was waiting for us at home could wait. Right now, I had a weekend with my son. I had no idea that in 24 hours, the storm would send us home a full day early, and I'd find an unfamiliar sedan parked in my driveway next to Emily's car. The drive home was brutal. Rain hammered the truck so hard I could barely see 10 feet ahead. Matthew gripped the door handle, his knuckles white as I navigated the winding mountain roads. What should have been a 2-hour drive stretched into 3 hours of hell. "Dad, maybe we should pull over," Matthew suggested as another lightning bolt split the sky. "We're almost there," I replied, leaning forward to peer through the windshield. 20 more minutes. The storm had rolled in faster and meaner than anyone predicted. By noon on Saturday, the lake had turned into a churning mess of whitecaps and debris. The Weather Service issued a severe thunderstorm warning, then upgraded it to a tornado watch. We'd barely managed to secure the cabin and get on the road before the worst of it hit. Now, at almost 9 o'clock Saturday night, a full day earlier than planned, we were finally turning into our neighborhood. The streetlights were out, leaving everything in darkness except for the occasional flash of lightning. Most houses were dark. Probably power outages from the storm. "At least Mom's home," Matthew said, pointing to the warm glow from our bedroom window. "She left the light on for us." That's when I saw it, a dark sedan parked next to Emily's white SUV in our driveway. Even through the rain, I could see it wasn't a car I recognized. My hands tightened on the steering wheel. "Whose car is that?" Matthew asked. "Probably one of your mom's book club friends," I answered, though Emily's book club met on Wednesdays and they usually met at the library. "Maybe someone got stuck in the storm." I pulled into the driveway, parking behind the strange car. Connecticut plates. The rain had slowed to a steady drizzle, but we were both soaked by the time we reached the front door. I fumbled with my keys, noting that the deadbolt wasn't engaged, just the regular lock. The house was quiet when we entered, dark except for that upstairs light. I set down my gear, trying to shake off the unease crawling up my spine. Matthew started to call out, but I caught his arm. "Let's not wake anyone," I whispered. "If Mom has a friend over, they might be asleep." We moved through the familiar darkness of our home, dripping water on the hardwood floors. As we reached the bottom of the stairs, I heard something that made me freeze. Laughter. Soft, intimate laughter from our bedroom. Then the sound started. The creak of bed springs, rhythmic, unmistakable. "Mom must be," Matthew started to say, then stopped. Even in the darkness, I could see his face change as understanding dawned. The sounds grew louder, a man's groan. Emily's voice, breathy and urgent in a way I knew too well. The bed frame hitting the wall in a steady rhythm that matched my suddenly pounding heart. "Dad." Matthew's voice was small, broken. I couldn't speak. My mind was racing through explanations, each more desperate than the last. Maybe it was the TV. Maybe I was mishearing. Maybe, oh God, Jake! Emily's voice cut through my denial like a blade. "Don't stop!" Jake Walter. The guy from 3 streets over who'd helped with our fence last month. Who'd been so friendly, so helpful. Who'd smiled at me while f***ing my wife behind my back. My hand moved without conscious thought, pulling out my phone. My fingers shook as I opened the camera app and hit record. Matthew grabbed my wrist. "Dad, don't," he whispered urgently. I looked at my son, saw my own devastation reflected in his eyes. "I need proof," I whispered back. "For court." The sounds upstairs intensified. The headboard was slamming against the wall now. Emily was moaning in a way she hadn't with me in years. Each sound was another nail in the coffin of our marriage. I started up the stairs, phone held steady despite my trembling hands. Matthew followed, his breath coming in short gasps that had nothing to do with our rush through the storm. The bedroom door was slightly open, lamplight spilling into the hallway. Through the gap, I could see shadows moving on the wall, 2 bodies intertwined, rising and falling. "Jake? Yes, right there!" Emily's voice was ecstatic, primal. My hand reached for the doorknob. 18 years of marriage. 15 years of raising our son. Thousands of days of trust and love and building a life together. All of it came down to this moment, standing outside my own bedroom door, listening to my wife scream another man's name. "That's it, baby," Jake's voice rumbled. "You like that better than what you get at home?" "God, yes," Emily gasped in response. "So much better. Daniel never—" I didn't let her finish. My foot connected with the door, sending it crashing open. The door slammed against the wall with enough force to crack the drywall. For a split second, everything froze, a tableau of destruction that would be burned into my memory forever. Emily was on top of Jake Walter, her back arched, hair wild around her face. The face that had smiled at me that morning, that had kissed our son goodnight for 15 years, now twisted in shock and horror as she saw us standing there. Jake was beneath her, his hands on her hips, his expression morphing from pleasure to terror in an instant. My phone captured everything. The tangled sheets, the scattered clothes, the bottle of wine on the nightstand, the expensive Malbec I'd been saving for our anniversary next month. "Daniel!" Emily screamed, scrambling to cover herself. "Oh God, no, no, no!" The sound that came out of me wasn't human. 18 years of suppressed rage, of small disappointments, of working 60-hour weeks while she spent her days at yoga and lunch with friends, all of it erupted at once. I dropped the phone, still recording, and lunged at Jake, my fist connected with his jaw before he could move. The satisfying crack of bone on bone sent him rolling off the bed, Emily tumbling with him. I followed him down, my knuckles finding his ribs, his stomach, anywhere I could reach. "Daniel, stop!" Emily shrieked, wrapping a sheet around herself. "You're going to kill him!" Jake tried to defend himself, but he was naked, disoriented, and I had the advantage of pure rage. My fist split his lip. Blood splattered across our bedroom carpet, the carpet Emily had insisted we needed to replace just last month. Now I knew why she wanted everything fresh and new. "Dad!" Matthew's voice cut through my fury. "Dad, enough!" Jake managed to scramble away, crab-walking backward, his hands covering his groin. His face was already swelling, blood streaming from his nose. He stumbled to his feet, grabbing for his pants. "I'm sorry," he babbled through broken lips. "Daniel, I'm so sorry. It just happened. Get out," I snarled, advancing on him again. "Get out of my house!" Jake gave up on his clothes. He bolted for the door completely naked, his pale ass disappearing down the stairs. I followed, Emily chasing after us with the sheet clutched around her. "Jake, wait!" she called after him. "Your clothes—" But Jake was already at the front door, fumbling with the lock. He yanked it open and ran into the storm, naked and bleeding. The sight would have been funny if my world wasn't ending. Porch lights flickered on across the street. Mrs. Gray's face appeared in her window, then quickly disappeared. Jake stumbled to his car, trying to cover himself with his hands. He couldn't find his keys. They were probably in the pants still on my bedroom floor. He ended up running down the street, disappearing into the rain-soaked darkness. Within minutes, the entire neighborhood would know. By morning, it would be all over town. I turned back to find Emily collapsed on the stairs, sobbing into her hands. The sheet had slipped, revealing the body I'd once worshipped, now contaminated by another man's touch. "How long?" My voice was deadly calm. She looked up, mascara streaming down her face. "Daniel, please let me explain," she begged. "How long?" I repeated. 4 months, she whispered in response. 4 months. While I was working late to pay for her lifestyle. While I was taking Matthew to his games. While I was sleeping next to her, believing we had a good marriage. "Mom?" Matthew's voice broke. He was standing at the top of the stairs, looking down at her with such devastation it made my chest ache. "How could you?" Emily reached for him desperately. "Baby, please, you have to understand," she pleaded. "Don't!" Matthew stepped back sharply. "Don't talk to me. Don't ever talk to me again." The words hit Emily harder than any physical blow. She crumpled, wailing, begging. "Matthew, no. You're my son. I'm your mother." "My mother is dead," Matthew said coldly. "You're just someone who looks like her." I'd never been more proud of him or more heartbroken for him. "Pack a bag," I told Emily. "You're leaving. Tonight. You can't kick me out of my own home," she protested. "It's not your home anymore," I replied, picking up my still-recording phone, making sure to capture her, covered in nothing but a sheet, sobbing on the stairs. "You have 10 minutes to pack. Then you're gone." "Where am I supposed to go?" she wailed. "I don't care." "Jake's house." "Your sister's. Hell, sleep in your car." "Just get out," I answered flatly. She stood on shaking legs. "Daniel, please. We can work through this." "Counseling," she tried. 10 minutes, I repeated. "Or I call the police and have you removed." "On what grounds?" she challenged. I held up my phone. "Domestic disturbance, adultery, take your pick." She looked between Matthew and me, searching for any crack in our resolve. Finding none, she fled upstairs. We could hear her throwing things into a suitcase, sobbing the entire time. "Dad," Matthew said quietly, "I think I'm going to be sick." I guided him to the bathroom, held his head while he vomited, then sat with him on the cool tile floor. My son, my brave son, who'd just watched his world implode. "I'm sorry you had to see that," I said. "I'm not," he replied. "Better to know the truth." Emily appeared in the doorway with her suitcase, dressed in jeans and a sweater. Her face was swollen from crying. "Can I at least say goodbye to my son?" she asked. Matthew didn't even look at her. "Get out," he said firmly. She looked at me, one last plea in her eyes. "Daniel," she started. "Get out, Emily, and don't come back," I commanded. She left, rolling her suitcase through the puddles in the driveway, loading it into her SUV. I watched from the window as she sat in her car for 5 minutes, probably hoping I'd come out, tell her it was all a mistake, that we could fix this. I didn't. Finally, her taillights disappeared into the storm-soaked night. Margaret Steele's office smelled like leather and old money. The divorce attorney sat across from me, her silver hair pulled into a severe bun, her eyes sharp as surgical instruments. She'd been recommended by a colleague who'd gone through a brutal divorce and won everything. "The video is damning," she said, watching my phone footage for the 3rd time. "But I want more. Adultery is one thing, but we need to establish a pattern of deception." It was Monday morning, less than 48 hours since I'd kicked Emily out. I'd taken a personal day, dropped Matthew at school despite his protests that he didn't want to go. He needed normalcy, even if it was just an illusion. "What kind of pattern?" I asked. Margaret pulled out a legal pad. "Financial irregularities, unexplained absences, anything that shows she was using marital assets to facilitate the affair," she explained. I thought about our credit card statements, the ones Emily insisted on managing because she was better with finances. My laptop was in my bag. I'd brought everything I could think of. "Let's start with the finances," she suggested. "What?" We found over the next 2 hours turned my stomach. Restaurant charges on days I'd worked late, always for two, always at places I'd never heard of. A hotel charge from 6 weeks ago when she'd supposedly been visiting her mother. ATM withdrawals in parts of town she had no reason to visit. "This is good," Margaret noted. "But we need more context. When did the behavioral changes start?" I thought back. 4 months ago, she said. "That tracks with when she joined the gym, started the whole makeover thing." "Pull the gym records. If she was meeting him there, we'll find a pattern," she instructed. My phone buzzed. Emily again. She'd called 43 times since Saturday night. I'd documented every attempted contact, every text message begging for forgiveness, for another chance to let her see Matthew. "Don't respond," Margaret advised. "Let her dig her own grave." By noon, we had a clear picture. The affair had been methodical, planned. Emily had opened a separate credit card I didn't know about, probably to hide expenses. She'd been meeting Jake at hotels when I traveled for business, at his house when his family was gone. "His family," I said suddenly. "Jake's married. 2 kids, Margaret smiled, a predatory expression. "Even better. We'll subpoena his wife for testimony if needed. Nothing like a scorned woman to strengthen our case," she replied. My phone rang. "Matthew's school, Mr. Carter. This is Principal Williams. We have a situation. Your wife is here, trying to see Matthew," the principal informed me. "She's not allowed near him," I said, my blood pressure spiking. "Matthew has made that clear." He walked right past her. "But she's causing a scene, refusing to leave," he continued. "Call the police if necessary." "I'll be there in 15 minutes, I responded. I arrived to find Emily's SUV in the visitor's lot, her inside it, sobbing. Matthew was in the principal's office, staring straight ahead with that same cold fury I'd seen Saturday night. "You okay?" I asked him. "She ambushed me at lunch," he replied. Started crying, begging me to forgive her. Everyone saw. The humiliation on his face broke my heart. Bad enough his mother had destroyed our family, now she was destroying his reputation at school. "I'll handle it," I assured him. I walked to Emily's car, knocked on the window. She looked up with hope that crumbled when she saw my expression. "If you come near Matthew again, I'll file a restraining order," I warned. "He's my son," she cried out. "You should have thought about that before you spread your legs for Jake Walter," I shot back. The crude words made her flinch. "Good. Daniel, please. I made a mistake," she pleaded. "A mistake is forgetting to pay a bill. You made a choice. For 4 months you made that choice over and over again. Now leave, or I'll have you arrested for trespassing," I stated firmly. That afternoon, Margaret called with more news. Jake Walter had fled to his brother's house in New Jersey. His wife had kicked him out after the whole neighborhood witnessed his naked sprint through the storm. She was filing for divorce and wanted to know if I'd testify. "Absolutely," I confirmed. Tuesday through Thursday were a blur of legal preparations. I transferred our joint accounts, secured the mortgage in my name, documented every asset. Emily's texts grew increasingly desperate. "Please, Daniel, I love you." "It meant nothing." I was lonely. Think of Matthew. You're destroying our family. That last one almost made me laugh. I was destroying our family? Friday morning, Emily showed up with a lawyer, a cheap suit from a strip mall practice. My client wants to discuss reconciliation, he announced. Not happening. Margaret replied immediately. Then we need to discuss asset division and custody, he countered. What assets? Margaret smiled. Mrs. Carter hasn't worked in 12 years. Everything is in Mr. Carter's name. As for custody, she pulled out a folder. We have sworn statements from Matthew refusing any contact with his mother, video evidence of adultery, proof of financial deception, and documentation of harassment at his school. Emily's lawyer reviewed the documents, his face growing paler with each page. Furthermore, Margaret continued, we're prepared to pursue alienation of affection charges against Mr. Walter, which would involve your client in extensive litigation. This is vindictive, Emily burst out. Daniel, you're being cruel! Cruel? I stood up. Cruel was f***ing another man in our bed. Cruel was lying to my face for 4 months. Cruel was traumatizing our son. This is justice, I responded. The courtroom was smaller than I'd expected. Clinical, almost, with its fluorescent lights and worn wooden benches. Emily sat across the aisle with her bargain lawyer, wearing a conservative dress I'd never seen before, probably bought specifically to look like a grieving, innocent wife. Judge Patricia Brennan presided, a woman in her 60s with eyes that had seen every variation of marital destruction. She reviewed the documents while Emily fidgeted, occasionally dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. Mr. Carter, Judge Brennan began, would you please present your evidence? Margaret stood. Your Honor, we'd like to submit video evidence of the adultery in question, she stated. The bailiff set up a laptop, and soon my bedroom, our bedroom, was displayed on the screen. Emily's lawyer tried to object, claiming invasion of privacy, but Judge Brennan overruled him. This was recorded in Mr. Carter's own home. Continue, the judge ruled. The video played. Emily's moans filled the courtroom. Several people in the gallery shifted uncomfortably. Emily buried her face in her hands as her voice echoed off the walls. So much better. Daniel never... That's sufficient, Judge Brennan said. Her expression had hardened. Margaret presented the financial records next. The secret credit card, the hotel charges, the restaurant receipts. Each piece of evidence was another brick in the wall I was building around my future. A future without Emily. We also have a sworn affidavit from Matthew Carter, Margaret announced. The minor child? Judge Brennan looked up. How old? 15, Your Honor. He insisted on providing a statement, Margaret replied. The judge read Matthew's words aloud. My mother's actions have destroyed my ability to trust or respect her. She brought another man into our home, into the bed she shared with my father. I witnessed the immediate aftermath of her betrayal. I do not wish to have any contact with her now or in the future. I request that my father receive full custody without any mandated visitation with my mother. Emily sobbed audibly. Her lawyer stood. Your Honor, my client admits to making a terrible mistake, but she's still this boy's mother. To completely cut her off from her child, he argued. Counselor, Judge Brennan interrupted, was your client thinking about her child when she committed adultery in the family home? People make mistakes, Your Honor. My client was suffering from emotional neglect. Mr. Carter worked long hours, leaving her alone. He continued. I couldn't stay quiet. I worked to support the family she was destroying. I interjected. Mr. Carter, please, the judge warned. You'll have your chance to speak, Emily's lawyer continued. She was lonely, depressed. Mr. Carter was emotionally absent. Objection, Margaret said. There's no evidence of emotional neglect. Mr. Carter was providing for his family. Sustained, the judge ruled. Emily stood suddenly. May I speak, Your Honor? She requested. Judge Brennan nodded. Emily's voice shook as she spoke. I know what I did was wrong, but Daniel was never there. He worked constantly. He took Matthew fishing, but never took me anywhere. I was invisible in my own marriage. So you made yourself visible to Mr. Walter? Judge Brennan asked dryly. I was dying inside. Emily turned to me. When was the last time you told me I was beautiful? When was the last time we went on a date? When was the last time you contributed anything besides complaints? I shot back. Mr. Carter, the judge warned, No, Your Honor, I need to say this, I insisted, standing up. I worked 60-hour weeks so she could stay home. I paid for her gym membership, her spa days, her girls' trips. I never questioned the expenses, never complained when she was too tired for intimacy, but somehow had energy for Pilates at midnight. I trusted her. And while I was working to give her the life she wanted, she was giving herself to another man. You gave me things, not love, Emily cried out. I gave you loyalty, I said quietly. That should have been enough. Judge Brennan had heard enough. Mrs. Carter, by your own admission, this affair lasted 4 months. That's not a mistake. It's a pattern of deception. You exposed your minor child to trauma that will require years of therapy. You used marital assets to facilitate your affair. And even now, you're attempting to blame your husband for your own choices, she stated firmly. She turned to the financial documents. I'm awarding Mr. Carter full physical and legal custody of the minor child. Mrs. Carter will have supervised visitation rights if and only if the child agrees to such visits. No. Emily gasped. Furthermore, the judge continued, given the length of the marriage and Mrs. Carter's lack of employment history, I'm ordering minimal spousal support of $800 per month for 2 years, giving Mrs. Carter time to become self-sufficient. Emily's lawyer started to object, but Judge Brennan cut him off. The marital home and all assets acquired during the marriage will remain with Mr. Carter. As evidence shows, Mrs. Carter used marital funds inappropriately. Mrs. Carter will receive her personal belongings and her vehicle, she concluded. Your Honor, this is unconscionable, Emily's lawyer protested. Counselor, your client is lucky she's not facing criminal charges for misuse of marital assets. I suggest you advise her to accept this judgment, the judge responded sharply. Emily stood up, shaking. You can't take my son away from me, she screamed. Mrs. Carter, you took yourself away from your son the moment you chose your affair over your family, Judge Brennan replied. I'll fight this, Emily screamed at me. I'll get him back. You can't keep him from me forever. Judge Brennan slammed her gavel. Mrs. Carter, one more outburst and I'll hold you in contempt. The judgment stands, she declared. As the bailiff escorted Emily out, still sobbing and threatening, I felt nothing but emptiness. No triumph, no satisfaction. Just the hollow echo of 18 years collapsing into legal documents. Margaret touched my shoulder. It's over, she said softly, but we both knew it wasn't. Not really. The legal battle was won, but the war for healing had just begun. 6 months? That's how long it's been since the storm brought me home early. Since my world exploded and reformed into something I barely recognize but somehow prefer. I stand in my kitchen, truly mine now, scrambling eggs while Matthew reviews his calculus homework at the breakfast bar. The morning sun streams through windows that Emily always kept covered with those heavy curtains she insisted we needed. Dad, I think I aced the physics test, Matthew says, not looking up from his work. Of course you did. You're brilliant, I respond with pride. He smiles, something that's come back slowly over these months. The therapy helped, but mostly it was time and the realization that we're okay. Just the two of us. Sarah asked me to winter formal, he mentions casually. The girl from your engineering class? I ask. Yeah, he confirms with a grin. Turns out she likes guys who understand quantum mechanics. I laugh, genuinely laugh. It feels good. The house is different now. Cleaner somehow. Not just physically, but spiritually. The toxicity that had been seeping into our walls for God knows how long has been exorcised. We repainted the bedroom, Matthew helped, and bought new furniture. The old bed went to the dump the same day Emily left. My phone buzzes. It's Tom Walter, Jake's brother. Jake's wife is taking him for everything. Thought you'd want to know, his text reads. I don't respond. I stopped caring about Jake the moment he ran naked from my house. His destruction was his own doing. Through the kitchen window, I can see the fence he helped repair. I should probably hire someone to redo it, but it serves as a reminder. Trust is earned, not given. Any word from... Matthew doesn't finish the question. No, I answer simply. It's not entirely true. Emily sends letters to my lawyer, begging for contact with Matthew. She's living in a studio apartment downtown, working at a diner off Route 9. Jenny Gray told me she saw her last week, said she looked rough, aged 10 years and 6 months. The drinking isn't helping, apparently. Matthew hasn't read any of her letters. They go straight into a file in case we ever need them for legal purposes. He made his choice that night, and I respect it. When he's ready, if he's ever ready, that door can open. But not before. Dad, Matthew says suddenly, that storm was the best thing that ever happened to us. I stop cooking, turn to look at my son. He's right, of course. Without that storm, I might have spent years more in ignorant marriage to a woman who didn't love me, who possibly never had. Matthew would have grown up watching a relationship built on lies, thinking that was normal. You know what? You're absolutely right. I agree. We eat breakfast together, talking about his college applications, his plans for MIT or Caltech. He wants to build things, he says. Strong things. Things that don't break when storms hit. As I drop him at school, I watch him walk toward the building with confidence. His shoulders are broader now, his stride more certain. The broken boy from 6 months ago has become a young man who knows his worth. I drive to work thinking about justice, about revenge, about the price of betrayal. Emily lost everything. Her home, her son's love, her comfortable life, her reputation. She got exactly what she deserved. But this isn't about revenge anymore. It's about the after. The storm that destroyed my marriage revealed the rot beneath the surface. It forced us to rebuild on solid ground. Matthew and I are closer than ever. I'm dating again. Carefully, slowly, with a woman who understands that trust is earned in small moments, not grand gestures. Sometimes, late at night, I wonder if Emily thinks about that storm too. If she realizes that her eagerness to get us out of the house that weekend was what led to her downfall. The irony isn't lost on me. She pushed us toward the very thing that would destroy her. Justice, I've learned, sometimes comes wrapped in a thunderstorm. And sometimes, just sometimes, the things that seem like disasters are actually blessings, clearing away the debris so something better can be built. The forecast today calls for clear skies. I believe it. And so, we've reached the end of today's story. Was it what you expected, or did it take a twist you didn't see coming? I'm curious to hear your thoughts. Share them in the comments below, and let's get a conversation going. If this story kept you hooked, make sure to hit that like button. And if you're new here or just haven't subscribed yet, now's the perfect time to join our community. I bring you fresh, captivating stories every day, so click that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss out. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.